Okay, we're going to take a look at this problem. It is about turning these words into an inequality. Now, what's the difference between an inequality and an equation? They're the same thing. They look the exact same, except an inequality has something that looks like this, or like this, or it could be a less than or equal or a greater than. Oops, that's kind of ugly. Let's erase that. Greater than or equal to sign instead of an equal sign. So it tells us here that we are going to set right an inequality, so we know we're going to be using one of these signs. Okay, now let's turn these numbers and words into an equation. So it tells us that the store owner, somebody who sells DVD players and CD players. You know, I don't see a lot of CD players sold anymore these days. More like MP3 players or iPhones. But this guy sells CD players and DVD players, and it tells us that he makes $125 of profit on every DVD player that he sells. So that's important. Let's underline that in green. And then over here in blue, we're going to underline this fact, that he makes $100 every time he sells a CD player. And maybe in order to make rent or meet his financial goals, this owner wants to make a profit of at least $500 every day. Okay? Now we can go ahead and write our equation out, but this problem is a little bit specific about the variables it wants us to use. If it were for me, I would use a D for DVD player and C for CD player, but it wants us to use X and Y. So when we write our equation, we're going to use, for DVD player, we're going to use the letter X, or the variable X, we should say. And then for a CD player, we will use the variable Y. Alright, so the way we write this out is $125 for every DVD player, or for each X. That will represent all the profit that we make for the DVD players sold in a day. Then we can add all the profit that we make for our CD players in a day. That would be $100 times Y. And we need this whole thing to be greater than or equal to, because he says at least, meaning that if he makes a profit of $500, that's enough. He's satisfied. So at least we can include the 500. That's where that or equals sign comes to. So this whole profit needs to be greater than or equal to $500. So now we have successfully turned this story problem into an inequality that models the situation. The next problem, and I didn't copy it onto this page for you to read, but it asks you to match it with a graph. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to graph this here. We know that it is a linear equation. We don't have any squared terms. It's just an X and a Y. So we're going to get a line, but with an inequality we're also going to have to do a little bit of shading. So let's go ahead and make an X and Y chart here. Really, we only need 2 points to get a line. So my first point, I'm going to say when X equals 0, what do we get? Okay, so I'm going to put a 0 in for X. And when I put a 0 in for X, this whole term is going to go away. And I'm just going to be left with 100 times Y is greater than or equal to 500. I can divide both sides by 100. And I find that Y is greater than or equal to 5. So when X is 0, Y is 5. And actually, let's erase this now so that we can do our equation again, and we'll remember that Y was 5. Okay, now in this time I'm going to choose to plug in pink. I'm going to plug 0 in for Y. Now zeros are an easy choice. It makes things pretty slick. So if I plug a 0 right in here for Y, this term is going to go away, and I'm just going to be left at 125 times X is equal to 500. So I would divide by 125 on both sides, divide by 125, and if you need to grab a calculator, that's okay, but this tells us that X is greater than or equal to 5. So when Y is 0, X is 5. Now, that I have 2 points, I can go ahead and make a graph. And let's make this actually straight. Oops. So here's a line for my graph. And here's another line for my graph. Oh no, I made a mistake. 500 divided by 125 is 4. So let's go ahead and make that a 4. I apologize there. I should have used a calculator. So that's a 4. See, we can make mistakes in math. It's alright. We can still recover. Now I'm going to just plot both of these points. So this one in red is the same thing as 0, 5. Now it might look like something you could put on a graph, right? So that means we go over 0 and up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and get a point. And then this one here in pink, if you can read it through my mistake, it's the x coordinate is 4 and the y coordinate is 0. So that means that we go over 1, 2, 3, 4 and up 0. So we'll have a point there. And then my line is not going to be dotted because it's or equal to. So that means we can include it. So we're just going to draw a regular line through both of these points here. So something like this and like this. And I like to put arrows on the end because that means that it goes forever and ever in each direction. We're almost finished now. We just have to do our shading. And we want to know, are we going to shade everything below it or everything above it? We do this. There are a couple ways, but what we can do is pick a point and see if it's true. So let's pick a point that's over here somewhere. So we're going to pick a point. If it's true, then that's the place that we'll shade. If it's not true, then we know that we need to shade on the other side of the line. So let's pick a point here below the line on the left side. Let's say we'll choose something pretty easy, like, how about this one? 0, 0. So that means when I plug a 0 in for x and a 0 in for y in our original equation, will I get something true? Let's try. So we have 125, and instead of x, remember I'm plugging in this 0, plus 100, and then instead of y, I'm plugging in this 0. Is that greater than or equal to 500? We're asking ourselves the question. Is that? Well, this is going to go away to 0, and that will go away to 0, so that just leaves us that 0 is greater than or equal to 500. That is a false statement, isn't it? Which means all of our shading needs to take place above the line. And let's shade in this nice gray color. So we would color in everything here. Now we have a picture of what the graph looks like. And we have also solved the problem. I hope that's helpful for you. And take care. Good luck in all of your math endeavors.